Wow, thank you everybody. Thanks for coming out.
It's a big turnout today.
Wow.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Los Angeles. So for those of you who don't know, I am Sam.
And I am Soorej.
And welcome to CassiePod, the show where we talk about pop culture, music, movies, and yep, pop culture. Today we're going to be talking about
the problem with movies today.
What is the problem with movies today?
Well, I have a few points, but one of the worst ones for me is the problem of being formulaic. If you look at a lot of franchises today, it could be any of them, a lot of them even made by Disney, perhaps.
Definitely Disney.
They follow the same plot structure, they all look the same, they're color graded the same, they have similar plots, similar villains. You know, he's like, how many times you've seen a girlfriend or a daughter taken away? Like, it's just, there's so little originality in movies today. Especially action
There's not
movies.
a lot of variety.
I agree.
Yeah, and that's the same with genre too. I mean, if you look at most movies, they are action movies,
horrors,
and comedies, horrors. Those are all the ones that get all the
musicals
popularity.
are gone, westerns are gone. These are genres that just don't get made anymore.
And I mean, I think it's because they found out what has worked for them in the past, and then they try to do that exact same thing over and over again.
Well, I think the problem is that a lot of these studios, they're just looking at the box office numbers, and if it makes a lot of money, it makes sense. They're not really looking at movies as an art form. They're looking at them as cash cows. What will print me the most money?
Exactly.
Oh, I can make a dumb action movie and get $1 billion. I'm making a dumb action movie.
Exactly. So let's go over our points here.
So a lot of franchises from your childhood maybe have come back in recent years, and they've all been clearly just for nostalgia for the most part. There's a few exceptions like Mad Max, but most of the time they just come back just to make money. The characters don't even feel like the ones you knew.
Yeah, exactly. They aren't trying to really add on to anything or experiment or try anything new. They're just doing the same thing over and over again, and you don't need the same thing over and over again.
There's some room for fun popcorn movies. There always will be, but that doesn't mean it needs to be the same movie. They could be different. You could have some variety. There's so much more you could do, and
exactly.
I think a problem they also have is being poorly shot. If you look at a lot of the action scenes, they try to hide bad choreography by shaky cam, close up, quick cuts. The Bourne movies were really popular, so that's what made that a thing, and ever since then,
totally,
they've been using it, and it's just hard to follow. You really can't see it.
Rather than back in the day, if you look at like Jackie Chan's,
it'd be like wide shots, and
it's
you could
all
see
wide
everything.
shots. It barely cut. The people acting actually knew how to fight, so they didn't need to have shaky cam or super bad lighting.
They practiced their choreography. They got it down to a science.
Exactly.
So it looked like they were fighting, and I think that people do this because they follow the trends. If you look at when The Dark Knight came out, it was color graded to be blue, and pretty much every quote unquote gritty action movie since then has been color graded blue.
Yeah. But it's not just trends too, it's easier. Because
it is.
It takes less practice, less time, less money.
Yeah.
It's just so much easier for them to put a little shaky cam in there and call that a scene, which is unfortunate.
Another thing that I've noticed a lot is these are action movies. In action movies, they need to have a big bombastic theme. This is this person, and this is the sound associated with them. You think back to Superman, the original one. You think back to Danny Elfman's Batman score. They just fit so perfectly. And for the large part, a lot of these superheroes, they don't have their own theme. There's a few, like Wonder Woman had one, which was made by Hans Zimmer, but for the most part, it's just generic music.
It's just generic music, and it gets covered over with other sounds too.
Yeah,
you can't even hear the music in most of the Marvel movies.
The sound mixing is really the effects are mind-numbingly loud, and then the music is like quiet.
If you try to go back right now and think of a theme from a recent Marvel movie, you can't.
You can theme this, like you could you could hum the theme to so many movies from back in the day. Star Wars, you could hum the theme to that. It's like one of the most popular themes ever.
Yeah.
What's the theme to Avengers?
There is no theme. Exactly.
What's the theme to Black Panther? I dare one of you guys to hum that right now.
Yeah. And,
exactly.
and what's the story, too, for a lot of these movies? There's not much of a story.
I really agree with the story part, especially because they make the trailers out to be a certain way, so you think the movie might be original and you think it might be cool. You look at Suicide Squad, and then when it comes out,
The
it's
trailer
just
is amazing.
It's the same movie again.
Yeah.
Look at everyone was so excited for The Force Awakens, and it came out, and a lot of people were really disappointed because it was just A New Hope.
And with these franchises especially, I haven't even been watching the movies anymore. I've just been watching the trailers because 90% of the time, the trailer is better than the actual movie itself, and it gives you all the information that you need.
Even trailers have become formulaic now. If you think it's quick cuts showing the characters,
They have.
that angry boat sound, and it's just a popular song from the 70s or the 60s or the 80s, and boom, you got millions of clicks on YouTube.
And they've been doing something new too, which is really weird. It's like they don't think we have any attention span at all. They put a trailer before the trailer. That's like 5 seconds long. Have you seen that?
I've seen that on YouTube.
That's so weird. Why do they do that?
Another thing that Disney's been the worst at this. This just happened today, actually. So they will post on Instagram, get excited for this trailer tomorrow. They're advertising advertisements. What is that? You used to go to the movie theater, see a trailer, and be like, oh, I want to see that.
You were excited for the movie.
Yes.
And not the trailer.
You remember, if you think back to the Dark Knight trailer, everyone was excited because they showed Heath Ledger in, and we're like, wow, he died. I really want to see his performance in the movie, and it got everyone excited. Everyone saw it, and he won the Oscar after he died. So there's a certain way to build up hype, and I think that
the way they're doing it isn't the correct way to do it.
I agree.
Yeah.
If you also just look at these movies, aside from cinematography, still visually they are not impressive at all.
They aren't using visual storytelling.
The thing is, they're just hiring whatever director who will just follow the studio and be like, yeah, okay. So when you look at Spider-Man, I don't know who directed that, but the answer is Disney directed that.
Exactly, because whoever directed that, which Spider-Man?
The new one, the Homecoming.
Yeah. So you can't really see a distinct style in that. If you look at something like any one of Edgar Wright's movies, or
you watch Edgar Wright,
Quentin Tarantino,
you watch
or
a
any of these
Tarantino
people,
movie, you know it's a Tarantino.
You know who you're watching instantly. It takes about 1 minute to pick up on that, and with these studio directors, there's no style.
Another thing I see done a lot is if you look at trailers after a movie comes out, they'll put certified on Rotten Tomatoes 94% or whatever.
Oh yeah.
There's so much focus on Rotten Tomatoes. I feel like they make movies at this point just for Rotten Tomatoes. And if you don't know how Rotten Tomatoes
and the
works,
Oscars.
If you don't know how Rotten Tomatoes works, a 94 doesn't mean a 9.4 out of 10. That means 94% of people thought it wasn't bad. Because it's just about agreeability. If you actually go on Rotten Tomatoes website, it'll say like average score, and a lot of these movies that have really high percentages, they're like average score of 7 or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. So because it's not that they're good movies;
they're just not terrible.
Yeah. There's a quote which I know you know. I've told it to you. It's from Aaron Sorkin, and it's talking about that and how there's a million different ways to prepare beef, but the least objectionable way would be something like a McDonald's hamburger because they're delicious. You eat a lot of them, but if you were a chef, you wouldn't want to make one for a living because
I think Disney's making McDonald's hamburgers.
They are. They're all McDonald's.
It's not just them. It's Warner Brothers too. It's Sony too. It's everyone.
It's everybody.
And I think that it's not just these silly action and horror movies. Even movies that try to take themselves a little more seriously, they're just really baiting for the Oscars. They do everything possible. I've seen
every single Oscar movie is the same now.
I've even seen companies push for the Oscars. Like an article came out that War for the Planet of the Apes was making a push to try to get the visual effects award. They didn't win it. I did think they deserve it, but I think it's a little silly that you just
there shouldn't be a push for the award because
you should just get it because it was good.
Right, exactly. but
you look like
it's turning into something more political than
you
that.
you look at a movie like The Post.
Mm-hmm.
Spielberg actually filmed that movie after Ready Player One, which is coming out this month.
Mm-hmm.
He pushed it out so quickly in order to get it to the Oscars.
Yeah, but that probably wasn't even Spielberg. That was probably
Yeah,
the
the studio. They're probably like, you need to fix this now.
I mean, I don't even think Spielberg won an Oscar until I don't even think he won one for E.T. Did he? Steven.
Well, with a guy like Steven Spielberg, we all know his best movie, Poltergeist. It doesn't even say his name on it.
And that's really disappointing.
Yeah.
So the first Oscar he won. What was the first Oscar he won? It was for Close Encounters, actually. For Best Director. Yeah, and there was so much before that too. That would have been. Oh, I get he did win an Oscar for E.T. Yeah. I don't think he did for Jaws though.
Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah.
The Post, he was nominated. I remember. That's just. I was really disappointed when I found out that he actually filmed that movie after Ready Player One.
Yeah. It's disappointing. And then the overuse of CGI.
Oh yes, practical effects are gone pretty much, and there are some movies like if you look at The Last Jedi, Alien Covenant. Some of these movies had quite a bit of really impressive sets and practical things, but for the most part, everything's just a CGI fest. Black Panther, which is really popular right now, had a really terrible scene where they're fighting in a dark train tunnel. And it's literally that entire thing is CGI, and they look like rubber.
They look so light and weird.
That's a problem with CGI. Things don't look hefty. They don't look heavy as they should.
They don't look like they're matter. They're actually existing in the universe.
It only takes a little bit more effort to make things practical. It's not even more expensive anymore. Because digital effects are so expensive to do. You look at all these budgets; they're insane.
And it's not that there's anything wrong with CGI, because CGI can be used perfectly and wonderfully, but if you look at the way David Fincher uses it, it's because it serves purpose for the story.
It's an add-on.
For something like in Black Panther, it's just...
Because they were lazy, they didn't want to film it.
Right. And they just want...
And they didn't want to design a costume.
They think that if you don't see flashing lights and all this stuff happening... I just bumped my knee, that's why we're laughing. And all this stuff happening every few seconds, that we're going to get bored, which isn't the truth.
So, basically to say things is, they just lack originality, and they follow a lot of trends as each other, and they're pretty much just going for money and or awards. They're not just making a movie for art. If you look at so many movies that are actually really well liked by a lot of people. Yeah. Baby Driver. That movie was pure art. He wasn't making that for $1 billion. He wasn't making that for 10 Oscar nominations and 5 wins.
He made it because he said this is going to be an amazing movie.
He wanted to make it. If you actually look back, he actually filmed a music video long time ago, and it was pretty much the opening to Baby Driver. So Edgar Wright's had this movie on his mind for a very long time, and he finally got to make it. And that's really impressive. If you could get your movie made that you've had an idea for a really long time.
Definitely.
And he made it for the art. It was a brilliant movie. I think it deserved best editing. It didn't win, which is a shame.
I have no idea why. It was the campaigning, that's why.
Yeah, because they refused to.
Yeah, they didn't push for it, which is not really the way it should be.
And that's the thing. I think Oscars, they just go for the most politically correct candidate.
Exactly.
So they're like...
Well, they want something that will pull at your heartstrings. That you always see like Holocaust pieces going into the Oscars. Things about slaves.
Hacksaw Ridge the other year was a Christian war movie about a guy who didn't want to use guns that pulls at your heartstrings.
Exactly.
They're just... And that was an Oscar-baiting movie.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have rushed that out to make... It's coincidental how that came out. And even some good movies, Oscar bait. All the Money in the World and Molly's Game just happened to come out in the last days of 2017. I wonder how that happened.
Yeah. And, I mean, I didn't see all the money in the world, but Molly's Game turned out really well.
Yeah, it ended up being really good. They didn't win.
That was a really good that was a really good year for movies, or summer, I guess, for movies, too. And
but there was just...
None of the good ones won.
After Baby Driver, for me, last year, the summer just ended up, it was terrible. There was nothing, and I couldn't get excited until the fall. And in the fall, we got hit with Blade Runner, which was that was a movie I was most anticipating that year, and it was brilliant. Nobody watched it.
Yeah.
Flopped at the box office, and that's really sad to see, because now that movie's not going to get a sequel, and it's set up for one. So now that movie just doesn't have its conclusion. It's supposed to be a trilogy. It's only 2 movies.
Yeah, it's disappointing.
This lack of originality has made us. The consequences of it has made us lose genres. We've lost these slow burn sci-fi mystery movies. We've lost musicals. I know there was La La Land and The Greatest Showman, but that's like one a year.
Yeah.
Westerns are completely gone, aside from Magnificent Seven. I can't even think of one recently.
And before La La Land and The Showman, Damien Chazelle worked on both of those movies. It's Damien Chazelle who's trying to bring those movies back. Before him, and he's a very young guy. Before him, there was nothing.
Another thing about musicals is that if you look at them now, they are hiring actors and actresses that people like Zendaya in The Greatest Showman.
Yeah.
Ryan Gosling was in La La Land. These are very, very popular celebrities.
Exactly.
They are not hiring people who sing.
Sing or dance. And that's, if you look at Singing in the Rain, Gene Kelly, the main character in that movie, he's a professional dancer. And that movie is known as one of the greatest musicals, if not the greatest musical of all time. So, the casting is all wrong.
I think it's important to say, though, as we're wrapping things up here, that not all superhero movies are bad. Logan, Deadpool, Guardians of the Galaxy, these are all fantastic movies.
Volume 1.
Yes, Volume 1.
Volume 1.
We're going to talk about Volume 2. But these are movies that are really good. So good things can come from out of these studios. It's just how often do they want to do it.
Exactly.
For Deadpool, the only reason why that movie got made is because they leaked test footage early, and it was super accurate to the comics, as Ryan Reynolds wanted it because he made the test footage. So they leaked that, and on YouTube it blew up. Everyone was saying how cool this is, how we want this movie.
Yeah.
And so Fox is like, oh, they like this stuff.
Yeah.
Let's make a movie.
Let's make a movie of it.
It tripled its budget. But if every movie could just instead of trying to make the most amount of money, they should just try to make it original and say something too.
Yeah.
Deadpool was a superhero comedy like none I've ever seen before. It was so original, and I know that they did that for money, but it is an example of a superhero movie that really blew up and took off. Logan too. It was a really dramatic movie. There wasn't even that much action in it. It was rated R. Same thing with Deadpool. That's clearly not.
And the ones they take these chances on work.
Yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy had like the best soundtrack ever.
It's really weird that they don't notice that formula.
Yeah,
when they do something different,
the absence of a formula,
it works. So
and you look at the recent Star Wars movies. There's been so much hate every single time. And you could just say that Star Wars fans love to hate Star Wars, which is at least partly true, but there's a reason why people are saying these things. The Force Awakens was literally just A New Hope 2.0. There was so many aspects of that movie were similar that you can't ignore them. So they turned Star Wars into a formula. And if you look at the other 6 movies, granted the prequels weren't very good, but they were all vastly different.
They were trying to figure out what.
And look at the two. You look at the 2 separate trilogies. They have different stories. And the new one, the first one at least, was very similar.
I don't even know what they're doing now. It's just nonsense.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
So we're gonna wrap things up, guys. I know, but
that's all we really have to say for this topic. I think that it's important to really look at the movies you're watching and not just be like, I had fun, therefore this is good. It's really important to say, have I seen this before?
Yeah.
What is this saying? How is the music? I think what we're trying to do on this show is push on that you should really be thinking critically of the movies you watch, and instead of just being like, I enjoyed it, 10 out of 10.
Exactly.
You should be like, oh, that didn't really have a score, but I had fun. So.
Because it is the audience feedback that is going to make the movies what they are. Because the studios are going to listen to the audiences, when they like these formulaic movies over and over again.
If we keep buying tickets, they'll keep being made.
So, thanks for having us, even though this is our show. And yeah, bye everybody.
See you guys next time.